asleep, fall asleep, fall asleep, fall asleep, or just relax, 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 relax. So just take a seat, lay down, whatever you want, and just, you could put this on in the background just to learn a few fun facts, or just to hear somebody ramble you to sleep, okay? I've got a bit of a dimmer light today, so let me know if you guys like that. But let's get on to the fun facts, Okay, number one. The pharaoh who hated flies so much that he weaponized honey. I probably will mispronounce a lot of these words, and I apologize for it. Pharaoh Pepi II ruled ancient Egypt for 94 years. And somewhere along the line, he developed an unrelenting hatred for flies. I'm just rearranging my mic, I'm sorry. His solution: he ordered servants to strip naked and cover themselves head to toe with honey. 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 And then stand around him like human bug zappers. The idea was flies would be so busy getting stuck on the honeyed bodies of the servants that they'd leave the pharaoh alone. Imagine your job being royal insect bait. Ancient Egypt wasn't always pyramids and poetry. Okay. Number two. I don't know how to pronounce this one, but it's Sumerians were the first people to get hammered, literally and figuratively. Over 6,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, the Sumerians invented beer. But it wasn't just a party drink, it was a sacred experience. They drank it with long straws out of communal vats because it was thick and porridge-like, not bubbly and clear like today. They even had a beer goddess named Ninkasmi, and a hymn dedicated to her that doubles as the world's oldest surviving recipe. It was basically a divine mandate to get tipsy together. That's an interesting fact. I have actually never had beer. I don't really know what it tastes like, but I'm also only 18 and I live in America, so it is illegal. So maybe, I don't think I would ever really like beer. I'm not that kind of person, but I could go for probably a margarita when I'm 21. Caligula declared war on the sea and took seashells as spoils. I'm messing a little bit with the mic because I don't know exactly where I want to put it, so I'm sorry. That's fact number three. Uno, dos, tres. Emperor Caligula. This is painful, I'm sorry guys. Was what you'd get if you gave away a deranged she-wolf, who nursed them like her own pups. In Latin, the word lupa means both she-wolf and prostitute. So historians still debate, did a literal wolf raise them, or was wolf just a poetic nickname for a kind woman of the night? Either way, Rome was raised on wild milk. It probably was just a prostitute, but it's more fun to think that it was a wolf. showdown followed. Dang. I wonder what happened to the cat. Number 30. The space race was kicked off by a dog. Oh no, I can't read this one. Oh, I'm gonna cry. Okay. In 1957, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1, the first artificial satellite. But it was the launch of the first living creature in orbit that truly was a professor at the University of Edinburgh and a master at diagnosing patients based on small details. His observational skills and logical reasoning were legendary. Conan Doyle learned from him. Sherlock was his scientific legacy, using logic to solve crimes that baffled others. The Great Tree of Tierney was the most isolated tree in the world. so scary it caused audience panic. Yeah, I bet. The first known horror movie was made in 1896. Though it was only a few minutes long and silent, it was so terrifying for its time that audiences screamed and ran out of the theater. The film had things like smoke-filled cauldrons and demonic apparitions, which were considered mind-blowing effects by that period. Yeah, I bet. The Louvre Museum used to be a royal palace until the revolution ruined everything. Before it became a world-famous museum, the Louvre was the royal residence of French monarchs. And in fact, Louis, another Roman numeral, made the decision to move to Versailles, leaving the Louvre largely unused until after the French Revolution. When it transformed into a museum, the revolution didn't just change France, it reshaped the very purpose of some of its most iconic landmarks. The Demon Cat of Washington, D.C. haunts the Capitol building. Legend has it that a ghostly cat roams the halls of the U.S. Capitol building. The Demon Cat is said to appear before major events like presidential elections or presidential deaths. Some claim that the cat can even predict disasters and attacks on the Capitol. It's thought to have originated in the early 1800s, but whether it's a ghost or just a very creepy stray cat is up for debate. I mean, if it's a stray cat, it's been like 200 years. I think it would be dead by now. There was a real-life dragon on the UK flag. In the Welsh coat of arms, there's a red dragon that's often seen as a symbol of the nation. The dragon has been an important part of Welsh culture for over 1,500 years. In fact, King Arthur's legend was said to include the Red Dragon of Wales battling an invading White Dragon, representing the clash between the native Britons and the Saxons. The U.S. government tried to weaponize lobsters during World War II. During World War II, the U.S. government attempted to use lobsters as weapons. Lobster traps were reportedly adapted to hold explosives and were meant to be dropped into enemy waters. The plan was for lobsters to get caught in the traps and then go off when disturbed by enemy ships. However, the project was quickly abandoned, probably because lobsters were not the best explosive delivery system. I'm hungry. I wish I had some. I wish I had some lobster. I wish I had some. What's it called? What's the seafood restaurant called? Oh my gosh. I don't even remember. What's the famous one? Red Lobster. I want some Red Lobster biscuits right now. The Earth's atmosphere was once full of poisonous gases until plants came to the rescue. Billions of years ago, Earth's atmosphere was a toxic mess filled with gases like carbon dioxide and ammonia. But then plants evolved and began absorbing carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. This process, known as photosynthesis, gradually transformed the atmosphere into what we breathe today. The rise of plants literally saved life on Earth, creating the breathable air we now take for granted. The composer who wrote a symphony without any instrumental sound, just silence. In 1952, history. Unlike many castles that are now tourist attractions, it has continuously been inhabited and used for military purposes, making it a living, breathing monument to history. The first electric train in history was powered by a single wire. In 1879, Ferdinand von Siemens developed the first electric train in Berlin. Unlike modern electric trains, which are powered by an entire track system, this early train was powered by a single wire above the track. The train was not efficient, it was more of a demonstration of what electric-powered transport could become, but it marked the beginning of a transportation revolution, paving the way for the electric trains that we use today. The Battle of Waterloo. In 1815, where Napoleon Bonaparte was defeated by the British and their allies, was not just a clash of armies, it was a battle shaped by weather and luck. The famous rainstorm on the morning of the battle made the ground money, slowing down Napoleon's artillery and cavalry. Additionally, Napoleon's choice to delay the attack gave the Prussian army enough time to join the battle and defeat his forces. In many ways, bad luck and poor timing were the key factors in Napoleon's downfall. Another freaking bug, I'm sorry. Okay. The development of the first human blood transfusion was done without the knowledge of blood type. Oh, that's crazy. The first recorded human blood transfusion occurred in 1667, performed by the French physician Jean-Baptiste Denis. He transferred lamb's blood into a human patient in an attempt to treat various ailments. However, blood type incompatibility was not yet understood, and some patients later died from transfusion reactions. It wasn't until 1901 when Carl Landsteiner discovered the existence of blood types A, B, AB, and O that blood transfusions became safe and effective. The real story behind the apple in the Garden of Eden. The apple in the biblical story of Adam and Eve wasn't originally an apple at all. The Bible doesn't specify the type of fruit that was eaten in the Garden of Eden, just that it was a fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Over time, art and literature have depicted it as an apple, perhaps due to the mistranslation of the Latin word malus, which meant both apple and evil. So the forbidden fruit was likely never intended to be an apple. The Titanic sister ship, the Britannic, was also involved in disaster, but it survived. We all know about the tragic sinking of the RMS unknown group of animals, dinosaurs. In 1842, the discovery of Megalosaurus, Incodon, and Epilismin helped establish the modern science of paleontology. The Mona Lisa was once stolen and not recovered for 2 years. Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa was stolen from the Louvre Museum in 1911 by an Italian named Vincenzo Brigula. A former museum employee believed that the painting belonged in Italy rather than France. He hid it in his apartment for 2 years. It wasn't until 1913, when an art dealer tried to sell it in Florence, that the Mona Lisa was recovered. The theft actually made the painting famous around the world, leading to its legendary status. The first underground railway system was not in London, but in New York. While London's Underground Railroad is famously associated with the abolitionist movement, the first underground railway system, also known as subway, was actually built in New York City in 1904. The IRT subway started operating with just 28 stations and eventually grew into the largest subway system in the world, shaping how cities would approach public transportation. London followed with its first underground system a few years later in 1863. The ancient Romans had a fast food item, but it was made from fermented fish sauce. The ancient Romans are known for their love of food. One of their favorite fast food was called garum. A fermented fish sauce was made by fermenting fish guts and salt for weeks and was used as a condiment in most Roman dishes. It had a strong odor, but was so highly prized that it became a major export product. Garum was considered a luxury item, and some varieties were even sold at extortionate prices. 91. The world's oldest known written recipe dates back to 1700 BC. The oldest recorded recipe we have comes from ancient Mesopotamia, found on a clay tablet. It details. Oh wait, we already read that one. Never mind. Pompey's destruction